Okay, so some of you are wondering why FutureDCComixzone has done 2 videos of me. That's at least what you guys tell me. And he's been very derogatory towards me. So this video is in response to that so that you guys can get what I have to say about it. First of all, FutureDCComixzone, which is Andre Francis, I have nothing against the dude. That's the first point, okay? I think that he's quite knowledgeable about DC Comics and about Warner Brothers. He's done his research. I actually admire him to some degree in terms of the attributes where he gets his information, for the most part, correct. He is at times wrong. In this case, he is. But we'll get to that. The important thing here is that I've been corrected by Andre before, so I'm not trying to say that I'm better than Andre or anything like that. Andre corrected me particularly on certain comments that Zack Snyder made on YouTube, which I thought meant that he would launch the DCEU, but that was his only role. And I was corrected in that Zack Snyder didn't say that. What he basically said, and Deborah Snyder also kind of corroborated, was that he was going to be doing DC Comics as long as he's needed, and he thinks it's for quite a while, but he does have some other pet projects. There are other pet projects he would like to do when, he's finished doing comic book movies. That's what was actually said. So don't get it twisted. I don't hate Andre. I think Andre is just a diehard fan. He names calls people, but I don't take that too heavily. I think that it's just that he's passionate about DC. He's a diehard fan. But concerning this particular issue, this issue centers around 2 things. One, my statements about the extended cut of Suicide Squad being a bad idea by Warner Brothers, and the second one being that I said, and I have always said, and I've maintained, and I've shown facts, that Christopher Nolan has played a role in not only launching the DCU, but a role in also creating the character of Superman in the DCEU. I maintain that, and I will show you with facts. Not only that, but also Zack Snyder was the one who chose... I'm sorry, not Zack Snyder. Christopher Nolan was the one who chose Zack Snyder to direct Man of Steel because of certain attributes he had. Andre does not agree with that. I'm going to show you the information, and then afterwards you can decide for yourself. So let's start off with the fact that Christopher Nolan, his role in the DCU, especially with Superman, he was involved in creating the story of Superman. Let's get into that. So all we have to do is go to the actual movie, the actual Man of Steel after credits. So here's the after credits of Man of Steel. Man of Steel. And it was directed by Zack Snyder. Nobody else. Zack was the guy. Screenplay by David S. Goyer. Story by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan. And this is just fact. I'm pulling it straight off of the movie, okay? The story was by David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, okay? I didn't say that, okay? This is given in the after credits. This is from Warner Brothers. This is from DC. It was produced by Charles Roven. Also produced by Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas. And also produced by Deborah Snyder. Now, I wanted to give you this information because it's straight from the actual film. Okay? Alright, and I just wanted you to see that that's empirical evidence that Christopher Nolan was involved in the DCU building. Now, into the specifics. Andre argues that Henry Cavill said that, this was Zack Snyder's film. Of course it was Zack Snyder's film. He was the guy that was directing. Christopher Nolan doesn't micromanage Zack Snyder. Christopher Nolan was busy directing The Dark Knight Rises, okay? Or whatever film he was directing. I think it was The Dark Knight Rises. So, Christopher Nolan didn't have time to micromanage that. That's why he recruited Zack Snyder to do the job. Now, for those of you who say that's not true, he didn't recruit Zack Snyder. It was, Warner Brothers that recruited Zack Snyder. This is what Andre was saying. Here's what we got. See, people don't know. Zack Snyder also recruited some of the directors that are directing movies now Okay? But Zack Snyder loves comic book movies. He's into comic book movies, comic book fantasy. That's what he's into. Now, if we go to Collider website, there's an article done by Adam Chitwood, May 22nd, 2015, which says Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, and David S. Goyer talk Man of Steel and their take on Superman. Describe the film as a sci-fi. Now, in this article, I'm just going to get to the point of how Mr. Snyder came into the equation. Here's what they said. As for finding the right filmmaker to bring this idea to fruition, Nolan explains why they settled on Snyder. And by they, we're talking about Goyer and Nolan. Mr. Nolan, a producer of Man of Steel, said he thought of Mr. Snyder to direct the film because of his stylized takes on 300 and Watchmen, and his innate aptitude for dealing with superheroes as real characters. That was what a new approach to Superman required, Mr. Nolan said. He understands the power of iconic images, but he also understands the people behind them. Okay? With regards to the fact that Snyder essentially deconstructed the entire superhero genre mythology in taking on Watchmen, Nolan says the irony is not lost on him. It's ironic, but it's a very productive irony. You're dealing with a filmmaker who has deconstructed this mythology and now has to reconstruct it. That's a fascinating challenge for him. So, there's the evidence. You can go ahead and pull it up online anytime that Christopher Nolan is saying why they selected him, that is Zack Snyder, to direct Man of Steel. So thanks to Nolan, Snyder gets to direct Man of Steel. Again, I've just come from facts. I have pulled from information online. I don't just talk out of the top of my butt, okay? I usually speak from facts, folks. So, Andre disagreed with me, and he was saying something about Tim Burton and how Warner Brothers made Tim Burton feel he was recruiting this guy. Look, if you believe that stuff, back it up with facts. Don't just talk. So, these are the facts. And Andre is wrong. Okay, Christopher Nolan was responsible for helping to ground the DCEU, so that Andre's statement that he had nothing to do with the DCEU, Henry Cavill said, it was Zack Snyder's film. Of course it was Zack Snyder's film. He's the director. Because of Nolan protected Snyder from WB. That's why you saw Snyder's vision. When WB wanted to go and change something and change this and shorten the time, Nolan was like, no. In fact, Zack Snyder has a video on YouTube. You can go check it as a Collider video, I think, on YouTube as well, where he talks about Nolan, giving him that freedom for it to be his film, and that when the execs tried to come down on him, Nolan was able to say, no, this is his film, this is his vision, because that's how Nolan moved. Notice the difference between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Snyder could not get his vision onto the theatrical release. He had to cut down the film. In another video in Collider, he was speaking to the gentleman and he said, well, all of it was in there until very recently. That's what Snyder said. Okay, which means that he had to chop down the film, or they had to edit down the film to a certain time frame, because Warner Brothers just, at the end of everything, all post-production, everything's done, wanted them to edit it down. Warner Brothers messed with Zack Snyder's vision. And we saw it, the ultimate cut was much better than the theatrical cut. Man of Steel did not suffer that. That's why we didn't have any ultimate cut. We didn't have no director's cut. Before Nolan, Zack Snyder, Watchmen was messed with by WB. Snyder's films kept on getting messed around with by WB. Okay? Christopher Nolan protected Snyder with Man of Steel. Snyder now talked to Nolan, as I said in another interview, about production logistics. So, get this straight. Nolan had a role to play in the DCEU, and he helped to launch the DCEU. Okay? while I agree with Andre about a number of other things about Christopher Nolan, that he didn't really do a comic book movie, the trilogy wasn't comic book related, that, you know, this was Zack Snyder's baby. All of these movies so far were Zack Snyder's baby. And yes, the DCEU is to a very large extent Zack Snyder's his vision. You have to understand, though, that Christopher Nolan played a role in that. Yes, David S. Goyer came up with the script, and we can talk about a whole bunch of other things. Superman was David S. Goyer's idea. It was David S. Goyer's baby, really. Even though Goyer and Nolan had conversations before about this. I'm talking about before even Batman Begins, when Nolan was actually thinking about doing a movie on Batman, which was Nolan's baby. Goyer came to Nolan and spoke to him about the 10 Commandments of not just Batman, what must stay, grounded in Batman, but also the 10 Commandments of Superman. So it's very important for people to understand this conversation with Superman also happened before even the Batman Begins movie. Okay? Very important for you guys to get it. Now, anyway, my point is that these are the facts on the matter, and that's what we disagree with, and that is where Andre is talking about I'm a Nolanite and I defend Nolan and all of that. I'm not a Nolanite, and I don't defend Nolan. I'm just giving you facts. These are not subject to argument. This is not our subject to dispute. Okay, these are facts. Now, as to Suicide Squad, the extended cut, this is my opinion on it, that Warner Brothers is setting a bad precedent. If the extended cut somehow is superior to what we saw in the theater, I'm saying if, it's a hypothetical, okay? Then once again, Warner Brothers has shot themselves in the foot. They did it with Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and then they will now have repeated it with Suicide Squad. Now, if the extended cut doesn't really impact the film much, doesn't make it better than the theatrical cut, still, Warner Brothers would have shot themselves in the foot, because people are going to still expect them to bring out an extended or an alternate cut of some kind. They have actually satisfied the detractors of this film by giving them exactly what they wanted. They want something to say, oh, well, Warner Brothers films are substandard. Look at Batman v Superman. They got extended cut. Man of Steel didn't get no extended cut. Ultimate cut. Then now they did Suicide Squad, a half-assed thing that the critics tore apart. And look, they come with an extended cut. What's it going to be next? Wonder Woman? Oh, you don't have to go watch the movie. You just go watch the extended cut, or the alternate cut, or the director's cut, or the ultimate cut, whatever. And I'm trying to tell you guys, that's not ordering good for Warner Brothers. And that's why I said it was a stupid move. I love, there's a video that you see before this one. I love what they're doing, extending the DCEU outside of the ambit of filmmaking. They did it with video games, and now they're doing it with Argus, where you can actually go to the Argus website. They did it with Lex Luthor. I think that's brilliant. They should just keep on sustaining that now and add more information through Argus and work their different vehicles. Brilliant. Their ad campaigns to a good extent are brilliant, but I would advise them to kind of tone down on the ads. Don't give away the movie before the movie comes out. Give just enough information, and that's it. And repeat the information over. They did with Suicide Squad, and in the last minute they started showing all the scenes of Suicide. I don't like that. But anyway, my point is, the extended cut, in my opinion, is a bad idea, especially coming off of Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut. You don't do that. Now you got people they're going to be expecting another extended cut of Wonder Woman. And if Wonder Woman is panned, which more than likely will be by critics, then when you get the extended cut, it's an apology again. It's like you're apologizing every time. And it's like you're trying to milk money from people. And people are going to they're just going to dissuade from you, and they're just going to go get their ultimate or the extended or the alternate, whatever cut it is. Director's cut, whatever. Zack Snyder had a history of that until Christopher Nolan came on the scene and stopped it, so that Man of Steel was what you got. Now it's the same monkey business again, and I hate that. I hate that. If you want to do an alternate cut or an extended cut or whatever after the fact, way after the movie has been released, after the DVDs have been released, that's different. You can add added features to the DVD, make things interesting. But no extended cuts. I'm tired of extended cuts, alternate cuts, director's cuts. I am tired of that nonsense. You're telling me don't go to the cinema, just wait for the extended cut. That's what people are going to do. That's just exactly what they're going to do. Okay? So I think that's a bad precedent. That's definitely going to destroy the DCEU if they keep up with that nonsense. The core people are going to do it, but then you need people outside of your core base to keep your franchise alive. Franchise is not going to survive with just the core base alone. So they need to think better about that. This is where Andre and I disagree. Andre has no reason, none whatsoever, he just name calling, to counter my argument. He can't counter my argument. Okay? He can't. And so those are the 2 points where he's done his 2 videos. Okay? Me, personally, I agree with Andre on a lot of things. I agree with him in terms of Marvel Tards even. People who were trying to tear down the DCEU early, which made no sense. Andre himself kind of has the characteristics of those kinds of people because he's against Marvel sometimes to a high degree, which doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, I agree Marvel movies are not necessarily comic book movies. They don't stick to the comic book. They don't rip things from the pages of their comics. The DC movies are doing that. But nonetheless, it's I get him fighting back because the establishment even has Marvel Tards in it. There are some raging Marvel fanboys who just hate anything DC, and they're just trying to destroy the DCEU, trying to destroy Zack Snyder's vision, trying to destroy without any cause. There's no real grounded anything. So, like I said, you have to understand what's going on. I'm not against Andre per se. I'm not against him. But when it comes to these 2 things, Nolan, which I don't know, he seems to not be able to separate Christopher Nolan from the raging lunatic Nolanite fans. Okay, he has to be able to separate that. You can't be working in absolutes all the time and think that people are against you or against the DCEU because they say certain things, which if you process properly, you realize they're coming from facts. They're not coming from, this is not opinion. This is not subject to opinion. This is actual facts. Okay? So, once he gets that, I think it'll be fine. On that note, you guys have a great one. That was the disagreement between me and Andre, and then that probably started him off flaming. And there was a private discussion, actually, which he's just made public, that's his fault. So, as a result of that, this is why I put out this video, so you guys would know. I laid out the facts. Again, I'm a factual person. I don't have time for opinions. I base my opinion off of facts. And if you can show me that I'm wrong, sure, yeah, I'm willing to be corrected. But if you can't, then it's good. It's a humble thing. It's a good thing to acknowledge that you're wrong about something. It's nothing wrong. It doesn't take anything. I'm wrong. I was wrong about it. I've been wrong about something with Andre, and I told him. And I actually put the correction in my video. All right, you guys, have a great one.